A long time ago, in a land where the scent of frankincense hung in the air and kings ruled with iron and gold, there rose a man unlike any the world had seen. A man whose wisdom became legend, whose riches rivaled the sands of the sea, and whose story still echoes in hearts today. This is the story of Solomon, son of David, king of Israel, and the wisest man who ever lived. The world into which Solomon is born is one of great transition. His father, King David, a warrior poet and national hero, has secured peace for Israel after decades of conquest. The capital city, Jerusalem, once a Jebusite stronghold, is now the center of political and spiritual life. The Ark of the Covenant rests there. The tabernacle is the place of worship. But the promised golden age has not yet arrived. Solomon enters this world as the child of scandal and redemption. He is born to Bathsheba, a woman whose very name is tied to one of David's darkest moments, 2 Samuel 11. Yet God, in his grace, chooses Solomon to carry the torch forward. Even before his birth, the Lord names him Jedediah, meaning beloved of the Lord, 2 Samuel 12 verses 24 to 25. When David is old and frail, the palace hums with whispers and intrigue. Adonijah, another son of David, attempts to seize the throne. But Bathsheba and the prophet Nathan intervene, and David publicly declares Solomon king. 1 Kings 1 verses 28 to 30. At just around 20 years old, Solomon inherits a united kingdom, but also immense pressure. Shortly after ascending the throne, Solomon does something unexpected. He goes to Gibeon to worship God, and there, under the stars, something incredible happens. In a dream, God appears and offers him a divine blank check. Ask, "What shall I give you?" 1 Kings 3 verse 5. Solomon, aware of his youth and inexperience, does not ask for riches, nor for victory over enemies. Instead, he says humbly, "Give to your servant an understanding heart to judge your people, that I may discern between good and evil." 1 Kings 3 verse 9. This simple yet profound request pleases God, so much so that he responds, "Because you have asked this, I have given you a wise and understanding heart, and I have also given you what you have not asked, both riches and honor." 1 Kings 3 verses 11 to 13. From this moment on, Solomon becomes a legend. Solomon's wisdom is not mere knowledge. It is divine insight, discernment that pierces through appearances and speaks directly to the human heart. One of the most famous demonstrations of his wisdom comes when two women come before him, both claiming to be the mother of a living child. With no witnesses and no evidence, Solomon says, "Bring me a sword." 1 Kings 3 verse 24. He proposes to divide the child in two. One woman agrees. The other begs to spare the child, even if it means giving him up. Solomon immediately knows the second woman is the true mother. His judgment astonishes all Israel. They saw that the wisdom of God was in him to administer justice. 1 Kings 3 verse 28. But Solomon's wisdom doesn't stop with courtroom brilliance. He writes over 3,000 proverbs and 1,005 songs. 1 Kings 4 verse 32. He studies nature, architecture, governance, and diplomacy. His words fill the book of Proverbs, the Song of Songs, and later in life, Ecclesiastes. Nations begin to take notice. Far to the south, in the land of Sheba, believed to be modern-day Yemen or Ethiopia, a queen hears tales of Solomon. Curious and skeptical, she travels with a great caravan of spices, gold, and precious stones to see for herself. 1 Kings 10 verses 1 to 2. She tests him with hard questions, and Solomon answers them all. But what astonishes her most is not just his words. It's the splendor of his court, the discipline of his servants, the offerings in the temple, and the peace in his kingdom. Overwhelmed, the Queen of Sheba proclaims, "The half was not told me. Your wisdom and prosperity exceed the fame of which I heard." 1 Kings 10 verse 7. She is left breathless, and so are we. Of all Solomon's achievements, none surpassed the building of the temple. David had longed to build it, but God appointed Solomon for the task. 1 Chronicles 22 verses 7 to 10. For 7 years, artisans, masons, and carpenters labored day and night. Finally, in a moment of national awe, Solomon dedicates the temple. The Ark of the Covenant is brought in, and the glory of the Lord fills the space like a thick cloud. 1 Kings 8 verses 10 to 11. Solomon stands before the people and prays a prayer that still resonates today, a prayer of humility, repentance, and hope. But will God indeed dwell on the earth? Behold, heaven and the heaven of heavens cannot contain you. How much less this temple which I have built? 1 Kings 8 verse 27. It's a high point not only in Solomon's life, but in the history of Israel. But even the wisest man is not immune to weakness. As his reign stretches into decades of prosperity, Solomon begins to drift. He marries foreign wives, hundreds of them, not just for love, but for political alliances. Many of these women bring their gods with them. And Solomon, perhaps out of diplomacy, perhaps out of compromise, builds altars for their idols. 1 Kings 11 verses 4 to 8. The same man who built the temple now builds shrines to Chemosh and Molech. The consequences are devastating. His heart was not loyal to the Lord his God. Therefore the Lord became angry with Solomon. 1 Kings 11 verses 4 and 9. God tells him that the kingdom will be torn from his descendants, not in his lifetime, but in his sons. The golden age begins to dim. In his later years, Solomon reflects. The man who tasted every pleasure, achieved every dream, and amassed every treasure begins to feel the weight of it all. And he writes, "Vanity of vanities," says the preacher, "vanity of vanities. All is vanity." Ecclesiastes 1 verse 2. Ecclesiastes is raw. It's philosophical. It's a glimpse into the soul of a man who had it all and realized it wasn't enough without God. Yet even in his questioning, Solomon leaves us with a final truth. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is man's all. Ecclesiastes 12 verse 13. Solomon dies after 40 years on the throne. He is buried in the city of David, and his son Rehoboam takes the crown. But the kingdom soon divides, and Israel enters a long, turbulent history. And yet Solomon's legacy lives on. Centuries later, Jesus himself speaks of Solomon. Now one greater than Solomon is here. Matthew 12 verse 42. A clear reference to the Messiah, wisdom incarnate. Solomon's story is not just about intellect or wealth. It's about the tension between human greatness and human frailty. It reminds us that wisdom without obedience can still lead to downfall, that the heart is easily swayed, even when the mind is strong, that the blessings of God are not to be squandered. And it also reminds us of God's mercy, because even in failure, Solomon's writings guide us. His proverbs shape our ethics. His poetry teaches love. His reflections lead us back to humility. In our age of information and endless knowledge, we're still crying out for wisdom. Real wisdom, the kind that builds, heals, and leads to life. Solomon's prayer in Gibeon echoes through time. Give me an understanding heart. Maybe that's our prayer too. If this story moved you or made you think deeper about life and faith, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more biblical documentaries like this one. Leave a comment below. What part of Solomon's story stood out to you most? And remember, even the wisest among us need God's guidance every day. See you in the next video.